Alrighty. So for anybody looking at the videos, only 9 minutes of the first half of this class got recorded. So we were dealing with Capture One, and you've missed expose. Let's see what. Let me find out all what you have missed. You have missed tweaks that we did to the exposure tool, the explanation of the navigator, sharpening, focus, and moire. We are in the crop tool right now, and you haven't missed as much of that as you might think. So this is where we're going to pick up again. So back into the crop tool. The last thing, two things that I want to show you here. One is how you actually can generate your own custom crop. To do that, you come up again to the crop tool dialog right here. You can do it again from the crop tool window, from the tool tab, but pretty much everybody does it from here. I've never seen anybody actually go into this guy unless they are doing overlay work. But at any rate, up here at the crop tool, you click on this and you come over to add aspect ratio. And you would type in, and it's a very good habit to get into naming the things that you're going to do. So let's say, for instance, we wanted to create a preset that was 5x7. So there may already be one, but we'll just do one anyway. So you would name it 5. I typically hit the space, hit the small x space, and then put in 7. And then you would simply put in the ratio 5x7. And say OK to this. And then you'll see in your drop-down menu at the bottom that you've actually got 5x7 right here. And then when you click and drag out on this guy, whatever, this will actually stay. This is the ratio here is a 5x7. So that would be how you would actually create one. However, we're going to create another one. So I'm going to click out of this to get rid of this guy. And in this one, I am actually going to add an aspect ratio. And on this one, I want to do 3.5 by 5. So it would be 3.5 space x space by 5. And you'll notice when you put in 3.5, it lets you put that in. But then we tab over. And the minute you tab over, it rounds your 3.5 up to a 4, which is not going to help you out at all. So to get around that, what you have to do is you need to eliminate the decimal points. To eliminate a decimal point, you simply move the decimal over 1. So in the case we've got a 3.5 right now, I'm going to move the decimal point over 1 space to the right, which gives me 35. And you do the same thing for the 5. So instead of 3.5 by 5, you would do 35 by 50. That would be the exact same thing. Does that make sense? So I'll show you what it is. So this is what you do to do magazine copy that's actually more complex than that. We're going to add another aspect ratio, and I'm going to title this US Magazine. And what a US Magazine is actually 8.25 times 10.875. Is that easy enough for everybody? I'll do it up on the board here so you can actually see it. Now you're not going to see that. You'll hear this on the video, but you won't see it. But this is what it looks like. So it's 8.25 by 10.875. That's what it ends up actually being. Okay. So focus, people. We got so much to get through today. So what most people will do is this. Doing 3 decimal points does not work in Capture One. You can only do 2. So they would round this up. They would say instead of 10.875, this is actually 10.88. And again, this is 1/1000th of an inch. That 0.5 is 100,000th of an inch. So it's not, trust me, this will be close enough, right? So again, we do the same thing. We move the decimal over 2 places. So you have 825 by 10,088, about 1,088. That's what you would actually put in for this. So again, in my drop-down guy right here, it would be 875 by 1088. And say OK to that. Don't ask me.
So you're putting a decimal at the very end?
Exactly. There is no decimal in this.
Well, wouldn't you just do this copy in Photoshop instead?
I'm just showing you guys.
Well, if you're shooting,
you ever shoot with the crop on it so you know where things are going to get cut off?
Some people do, but that's why we're going to go into overlay right now so that you do know where things are actually going to get cut off. So for overlay, what you need to do is you actually need to, did everybody copy that file off the server, the one that says Vogue layout.tiff? You need to copy that and have that on your desktop. When you get that on your desktop, you need to slide capture one. Let me just reset this guy really quickly, guys. You need to slide capture one to the side. I'm actually going to then come up to the capture one menu and come down and say hide others. You should be able to see your desktop right now. Hopefully you can see that file on your desktop. If you can't see it on your desktop, you need to go to your desktop and move it so that you can see it. And then again, back in the crop dialog box right here, what you want to do is click on that file and drag it on top of this space that says overlay. And it should come in. That's the easy way to do it. If you need to navigate for it, you can do that as well. You simply click on the little browse button that's down here at the bottom. If you click on this guy, it will open up a screen and you can actually navigate to this guy. Either way, you need to get that Vogue guy on here. Did that work? Has everybody got it? Okay. So then to actually work with it, you need to click on and it says show, and you will see that it'll come up onto your screen. You can now control it. If you click on the little hand, you can actually move it around. If you click on the opacity slider, you can actually make it more opaque or less opaque, so you can actually sort of see where things are going here. You can scale it as well. You can make it larger or smaller. And then finally, these controls right down here, move it either horizontally or vertically. They didn't used to have this little hand, so that was the only way you could ever move it around before. But this is, a lot of people work this way with this, so that they know that when they're shooting this, you know, the title is going to cut across the top of her head, so there's a good chance I would actually back out a little bit of this, or we would know that we would have to ghost this out. They would actually probably drop her face on top of this. Is the Paris part a problem if they do that? It probably would be. So you would probably move the girl's head more over in this area over here. Whatever. It just gives you a preview of how things are going to happen. The area right down here that's the barcode is like religious area in all printing. So you would not want anything underneath this that would actually confuse this. So anyway, it's just a way of actually working with this. People ask this question all the time. Can you actually print this thing out to have it look like this? And the answer is no, you cannot do that from the overlay. You can actually do that in processing, and I'll show you how to do that in processing. If you don't want to see this guy anymore, then you simply uncheck this. This overlay will handle any type of image file. It'll handle a JPEG, a TIFF, it'll handle a Photoshop file, it'll handle, I'm not entirely sure, I think it will handle an Illustrator file. But don't quote me on that one. If you were using an Illustrator file, which is, again, how most people would actually do this, or an InDesign file, you probably, if it didn't do it, I would be surprised. But if not, then you would simply export a version of that as a TIFF or this will actually do a PDF. So anything that you can export it out to, this will actually probably read. Okay, we're getting there, folks. Next guy over, tab over, is the processing tab. And this is somewhat confusing when you get, oh wait, before we get there, I want to show you one other thing before we get there. There's one other thing that I'm going to show you really quickly, and it's this guy up here. It's this always reminds me of like some Ku Klux Klan sign thing, but you see the little circle up at the top with the X through it? If you click on that, you will see that you get these little X's all over your image. What this is what Capture One calls composition mode. And what happens is this. Typically, if you did not have this on, every time you would go in and you would start to do your lighting. And you would do your first image, and that's written to the file. You would make an adjustment to your lighting. You do the next image, and it keeps all of those files. All of this, so it's basically all the junk files that you generated to actually get your lighting correct, right? Or get your composition correct. If you click on this guy instead, what ends up happening is that every single exposure overwrites the one before it. So you do not accumulate all of those files. So a lot of people will, to save space, will simply use this. It's called composition mode. And what happens is that every time you would actually take a frame now, it will overwrite the one that you just took before. So you do not have that whole group of frames that you use to do all your relighting. typically, I do not ever use this because there are things that happen in my lighting that I like to refer back to. There's information that I see. There's just stuff. In my opinion, there's no reason to use this tool. However, it's important that you guys know that this thing and what it's actually doing, because if inadvertently this thing gets turned on, you can only make one image. You cannot make more than one image with this thing turned on, and it will only keep the last one. So you could shoot all day long. You could shoot 1,000 frames, and at the end of the day, you'd have one frame. Sort of helps to know that what this thing is, right? So if you see this, that's what it is. For people who use this, and there are people who like to use this, I would suggest that you do this. If you think about doing a lighting situation, so let's say, for instance, you can see in the very beginning of my frames, whatever, I've got a guy standing in here. I'm trying to get my lighting, and I'm going through all of this. Conceivably, I could use composition mode as long as the person that I wasn't shooting was my stand-in. But the minute you get the real person in there, the minute this person walks out and the girl walks in, you turn this thing off. Even if you are still lighting, you would turn this guy off. Because otherwise, again, if you don't remember this or know what's going on, you can get burned by this, and you will end up with you'll end up with one photograph at the end of it all, which sucks. John?
So it's only saving like previews?
No, it's saving one file, the entire file.
But
everything else is gone.
But so wouldn't you notice that? Because there would only be one showing up the whole time.
You'd think.
I mean, it'd be difficult to miss.
You would think. What about all the big fucking X's all over the image? You think you'd notice that too, right? Hey, I'm the messenger here. Nothing else. Okay, processing. So let's get into processing. Okay, so on the processing tool tab, what you've got here is, and it's a really good thing that happens in in Capture One, is the ability to process a single file multiple ways. And you will find this happens so much in the commercial world. What typically ends up happening in the commercial world is that most clients want a high-res image. They want a raw file, and then they want a JPEG, a small JPEG that they can use. They call it for position only. It's something that you would typically use. It's a very small file. You can use it as a preview to send to your clients. You could use it as a preview and a layout. It's very small. It's very quick. It's easy to work with. You're not pushing around these huge, big, processed out data files. So